There is a feeder sitting in a coop in northern Indiana that was built on a Saturday afternoon in 2019 for $14.32 in materials. It has not been refilled more than once a week since the day it was installed. It has not jammed. It has not spilled. It has not required a single modification. The flock of 12 that eats from it has maintained consistent production through 2 winters without a single day of empty trough. And the person who built it has not thought about feeding schedules, feed waste, or morning fill routines in 5 years. $14. One afternoon. 5 years of not thinking about it. Here is the first question. The gravity-fed bulk feeder is not a new concept. It appears in American agricultural extension literature going back to the 1940s. Pre-commercial homesteaders were building versions of this system from salvaged pipe and scrap wood before most of the products currently sold in farm stores existed. Why is the dominant retail solution in every farm supply chain today a shallow open trough that spills feed onto the floor, requires daily refilling, and generates feed waste documented at between 15 and 30% of total feed dispensed? Here is the second question. A backyard flock keeper refilling a standard open trough feeder once or twice daily, 7 days a week, spends between 25 and 35 hours per year on a single task that a correctly built gravity system eliminates almost entirely. 25 to 35 hours per year. What does that time cost? And who profits from the system that wastes it? Stay with me, because the answer to the second question is the same answer that explains why this build has never been featured in a hatchery newsletter, never appeared in a sponsored beginner's guide, and never been the top recommendation from any feed company with a product line to protect. The open trough feeder is not the dominant retail product because it works best. It is the dominant retail product because it fails in the most profitable way possible. Feed spilled on the floor is feed that must be repurchased. Wet feed spoiling in a shallow trough is feed that must be repurchased. A feeder that requires daily attention trains the flock keeper to show up daily, which means daily proximity to a product display, which means daily opportunity to purchase something additional. The system is not designed around your convenience. It is designed around your return visit. A gravity feeder with a correctly sized reservoir, a weatherproof feed channel, and a rain-shielded opening eliminates spill waste, eliminates moisture contamination, extends refill intervals to 5 to 7 days on a flock of 10 to 12 birds, and requires approximately 4 minutes of active management per week. For minutes, the open trough system averages between 25 and 40 minutes per week for the same flock size. That is a difference of 20 to 36 hours per year. Time the industry collected from you by selling you a product it knew was inferior. Now you are 3 minutes in and I need you to stay, because the build itself takes less time to complete than the average backyard farmer spends refilling an open trough feeder in 2 weeks. And every component is available at a single hardware store visit for under $20. Here is the full build. The core of the system is a 4-inch diameter PVC pipe, Schedule 40, cut to a length determined by your coop ceiling height minus 8 inches. For a standard 6-foot coop interior, that means a 56-inch pipe. This is your feed reservoir. It holds approximately 8 to 10 pounds of whole grain or layer pellets, depending on density, enough to feed a flock of 10 to 12 birds for 5 to 7 days without refilling. PVC pipe is food safe, moisture resistant, vermin resistant when capped correctly, and costs between $6 and $9 for a 5-foot section at any hardware store. This is the most expensive component of the entire build. The bottom of the pipe gets a 4-inch PVC elbow, a 90-degree fitting that redirects feed horizontally out of the base of the reservoir and into a short horizontal section of pipe. That horizontal section is your feed channel. It runs approximately 6 inches and terminates in an opening that sits at the correct feeding height for your breed, roughly 4 to 5 inches off the floor for standard laying breeds, slightly lower for bantams. The elbow fitting costs under $2. The horizontal section is cut from the same pipe stock. The opening of the feed channel is where most gravity feeder builds fail. A pipe opening pointed directly at the floor causes feed to avalanche out when the reservoir is full and compact into a blockage when it is near empty. The correct solution is a 45-degree cut on the terminal end of the horizontal pipe. a bevel that creates a partial opening allowing gravity to dispense feed continuously at a controlled rate rather than in surges. This cut takes 30 seconds with a hacksaw and is the single modification that separates a functioning gravity system from a frustrating one. The top of the reservoir pipe gets a 4-inch threaded cleanout cap, not a permanent cap, a threaded one. So refilling requires no tools and no disassembly. Unscrew, pour, replace, 12 seconds. The cleanout cap costs under $2. The entire pipe assembly mounts to the interior coop wall using 2 standard pipe brackets, the kind used for plumbing runs, available for under $1 each in packs of 4. Mount the reservoir vertical, secure the elbow at the base, run the horizontal feed channel through the bracket at the correct height, and the structural build is complete. Total hardware cost at this point, $11 to $14 depending on pipe length and local pricing. Weatherproofing is the detail most first builds omit and most second builds add. If your coop has any cross ventilation, and a correctly managed heritage coop should have cross ventilation, moisture will eventually enter an uncovered feed opening and cause pellet clumping that blocks the channel. The solution is a simple rain hood, a 4-inch PVC cap split lengthwise and mounted above the feed opening at a 15-degree angle, creating a physical moisture barrier without restricting airflow or feed access. This adds $1 to the material cost and 20 minutes to the build time. It is not optional in a well-ventilated coop. Total build time including measuring, cutting, test fitting, and wall mounting, 60 to 90 minutes. Total material cost, $13 to $17. Tools required, hacksaw or PVC cutter, drill with a 1/2-inch bit for bracket screws, measuring tape, nothing else. The performance numbers are documented and consistent. Feed waste on a standard open trough system in a flock of 10 to 12 birds, 15 to 25% of total feed dispensed, lost to spillage, floor contamination, and moisture spoilage. Feed waste on a correctly built gravity system with a beveled opening, under 3%, attributable almost entirely to birds flicking feed from the opening during active feeding. At current layer pellet prices, that waste reduction represents between $18 and $32 per year per flock of 10 in recovered feed cost alone, which means the feeder pays for itself in the first month of operation and generates positive return on material cost every month after that. The refill interval arithmetic is straightforward. 8 to 10 pounds of feed in a 4-inch by 56-inch reservoir. A heritage laying hen on managed pasture with supplemental grain consumes approximately 1/4 pound of supplemental feed per day when foraging is active. 10 hens, 2.5 pounds per day. 8 to 10 pound reservoir. 3 to 4 days between refills in peak foraging season. In winter, when foraging contribution drops, consumption rises to 1/3 pound per bird per day. 10 hens, 3 1/3 pounds daily. Refill interval, 2.5 to 3 days. Still not daily. Still not twice daily. Never the 25-minute morning routine the open trough system required. The build scales without modification. A flock of 20 requires 2 units mounted side by side, or a 6-inch diameter pipe substituted for the 4-inch, which increases reservoir capacity to approximately 18 to 22 pounds and extends the refill interval proportionally. The 6-inch version costs $4 to $6 more in materials and builds identically. Here is the answer to the first question. The 1940s agricultural extension literature that documented gravity-fed bulk feeders did not disappear because the system was superseded by something better. It disappeared from mainstream recommendation at the same time the commercial farm supply retail chain was being built, because a system you build once for $14 from hardware store components generates zero recurring product revenue. It cannot be sold on subscription. It cannot be improved with accessories. It cannot be featured in a spring catalog alongside the chicks and the feed bags and the heat lamps and the waterer additives. A system you build in one afternoon and use for a decade is the worst product a farm supply store can sell you, which is exactly why they never have. $14, one afternoon, for minutes of management per week.